Hello, everybody. This is Mike Young with aPlantBasedDiet.org, and I'm excited to be joined by Sid Nodder today. Hello, Sid.
Hello.
And Sid has been involved with our events that we do with our nonprofit. She's given a lot of presentations. She's written a book called The Plan A Diet. I think if you have it, you feel free to hold it up so people can see what that looks like.
Plan A Diet.
Plan A Diet, awesome. And I think just from my description of you, I'd say you are definitely an advocate of eating a whole food plant-based diet. Is that right? That'd be a good description.
Years. Yes.
How many years?
For over 25 years, I've been helping people eat this way.
That's excellent. That's way longer than I've been involved. I didn't even turn vegan until 2014. So it's great to have a resource such as yourself with this kind of experience. And today's topic actually is going to really rely on your experience here, because we're going to be talking about family and social pressures and how that relates to your lifestyle, right?
Exactly. It's one of the biggest barriers that I see when people come to me for help. They say, oh, my family would never eat this way, so I'm not even going to try it.
Right.
That's a big obstacle.
Yes. So I know that I had that obstacle when I started out in 2014. I didn't know anybody that was eating this way. When I say this way, I mean, at least at that time, was free from animal products. Mm-hmm. So I kind of had to develop my own resources, which we still have today. But what can you tell us? Like, what do you tell people to do? What are some good techniques and any other tips and techniques and hints you can give us to be successful with this?
Sure. Well, as I said, it's one of the most common hurdles out there. And sometimes if your family's not supportive of what you're doing, they can try to make you feel guilty or even try to sabotage you in some way by luring you back into the old unhealthy ways. I've seen that happen. So if everybody's eating buckets of chicken and a processed birthday cake, and it's all there in the house, it can be very hard to stick with your way of eating.
Yes.
Surrounded by bad food.
That's right. Okay. There's no question. I mean, I think probably everybody watching this video is going to be in agreement that there's always that pullback into old ways, right? Coming from so many directions. So what can people do? What do you recommend that folks do?
Yeah, the first step is to have a frank discussion with your family about your motivators for this and ask for their support. It's important to let them know that they won't be forced to change to eat your way. You're not going to try to force them to eat a certain way, or they won't have to change what they're doing. But will they support you? You need to have a frank discussion about that, because maybe they don't think what you're doing is healthy. Or they'll try to sabotage you so that they don't feel bad about what they're eating. There's a myriad of reasons why they could try to stonewall you from doing it.
Okay. And of course, the reasons why this would happen, I guess, psychologically, is just that's how people were raised, right? I mean, everyone's going to go back, and people don't want to change. I'm just thinking in a general psychology standpoint here. So letting them know, I guess, is a great first step. Say, I'm doing this, right? Help me if you can, but don't hurt me, right?
Right. Explain what's motivating you. Maybe you have a health condition, right, that you're trying to reverse, and then share exactly how they can help you. Like, discuss the negotiables. If they're going to bring junk food into the house, are they willing to store it out of sight? Are they willing to have their own cabinet somewhere and not lay it out where you're going to be tempted by it? Do you want them to share in the shopping and cooking duties now that you're not going to be eating that way? Are they willing to do that with you? What restaurants will you go to? Will they be willing to go to a restaurant that can accommodate you as well? So there's all these negotiables, right, that should be discussed, and not just say, will you support me, but give them the exact details of how they can do that.
Okay. And is this mainly applied to folks that you live with, that you share living space with?
Yeah, but it can apply to your friends as well. When you're going out to eat with your friends, it can apply in that situation as well.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then what about friends? I mean, do you recommend that folks seek out new friends? Folks that are going to lead them in the right direction. And how do you do that? What do you suggest if you're even suggesting that?
Well, it's definitely important to have those people in your life, people that align with what you're doing. But do you have to give up your old friends? No, not necessarily, as long as they're willing to support you a little bit and go meet you halfway with the restaurants and all of that.
Okay. Okay. I know that for me, I will tell you that I don't know if this is in general, but I think that, just give me your feedback. I'm curious as to what you think. It seems that most people that kind of go into this lifestyle, avoiding animal products, eating plants, trying to take, better or the best care of themselves, they tend to be people that are more sensitive individuals, I suppose,
Mhm.
and I think that those folks, including myself, would be more negatively impacted by a lack of support from those around you. So like for me, I know that that's one of the reasons why through our nonprofit, we created a lot of these local communities, because I felt like I needed that circle of people that are going to help bring me up, right? Instead of the opposite, because just again, I'm not a psychologist, but thinking from a psychology standpoint, if I'm surrounding myself with people that are going to bring me down in whatever endeavor I'm trying to do, then they probably will, right? They probably will succeed. I'll probably end up there. But if I'm going to surround myself with people that are going to challenge me, and in difficult ways, and bring me up though to a level that I want or reach my goals, that is going to help me, and I find for myself anyway, I'm very much influenced by who I choose to spend my time with.
Mhm. That's true. Yeah, if they're going to try to pull you down, then you don't want to be hanging out with them for sure. If they're willing to stay neutral and somewhat support you in what you're doing, then there's hope. You might
Okay.
even influence them, to eat
True.
healthy.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's difficult too. I know, especially if you're talking about family dynamics, right? If you're talking about parents that raised you, right? They raised you in a certain way, and then they see that, well, maybe you're moving over to this different way, and that's not. What are you trying to say? Like I raised you wrong, or something? There's probably that dynamic going in there too. So I know
Yeah.
sometimes it can be real touchy.
Yes. They could take it personally that you're
Yes.
eating better than them or they did something wrong. There's a lot of family dynamics
Yeah.
involved for sure. So if they're willing to stay neutral and support you, that's a big hurdle. If
Okay.
they're not willing to budge though, because sometimes this happens where one spouse is not willing to budge at all, that is not a good situation. So that could be an underlying issue there that people would need to explore deeper. Like, why would your spouse try to inhibit you from improving your health? That would take a lot of underlying exploration to see. Maybe they are prideful, like they don't want you telling them what to eat, or they're afraid you're going to be telling them what to eat, or they're in denial, or whatever it is. It could be many, many reasons, but it definitely is worth exploring if they're not even willing to stay neutral as far as what you're doing.
Okay. Now I can see that's a real challenging issue. I know that I have been in the past in relationships where I didn't see eye to eye, right? I didn't. This is a long, long time ago. But I can also see the benefit of having a close relationship with someone, a romantic relationship, whatever, especially a romantic relationship, that you'd see eye to eye on this. What do you recommend with this? Is there a rule with this? Like, if let's say you're in the dating world out there, should you avoid people that have a very, very different lifestyle? Or do you need to kind of right away get down to the analysis that you just mentioned, right? If they're open to it or not.
Right. I think that's going to vary from person to person, what they're willing to compromise on. I mean, never compromise on your health, right? Or what you're eating. That
Right.
would be number one. So if you're looking for a partner out there that doesn't support those values and is going to want barbecue every night, pork barbecue, and all, if that's going to bother you, if you're going to be expected to be around that environment, how is that going to impact you? Is that going to bring you down? Is that someone you'd really want to spend your life with, with that whole food barrier there? Every person's different, I've discovered, when it comes to that. I know many wives that it's usually the wife that wants to go plant-based and not the husband, although it can go both ways. So one wife, her husband does all of his own cooking, and they're quite happy that way. And they have a good marriage. And another wife will go and buy her husband whatever he wants, meat, and she'll prepare it for him.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you know,
Just depends on what you work out, right?
yeah, how it all works out. It can be done, but
That's an interesting point. You brought up that point that it's mostly females, mostly women. I mean, I have noticed that myself, and I think that in some surveys I've seen, like if you look at veganism in general, I say that this was a few years back, but they were saying it's like 75% female, 25% men.
okay.
So, what do you think the reason behind that is?
The reason that it's mostly female,
Yes.
quite sure.
Yeah.
Maybe men are a little more dug into their patterns of, meat is manly type of thing. I'm
Right.
not quite sure there, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
not quite sure either. I have my own ideas. My own idea is that if you look at statistics too, in general for the entire human population, women usually live longer, right? By a significant margin. I think it's like 5 years longer than the average man, right? And I tend to think that that's because of a number of factors, of course, but the overall, I think, common part is that women tend to take better care of themselves and men tend to do riskier and more unhealthy activities. Just as a general rule, right?
Interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, and also women have always been traditionally the caretakers in the home. Although I know that's changing because you see stay-at-home dads as being somewhat common nowadays. But in the traditional sense, that's always been there, and there's probably a reason for it, right? Because women tend to take better care of themselves. I guess that's probably who you want taking care of a family unit, or at least putting more time into it. But I'm a guy, okay, so I'm trying to change that, I guess. I'm trying to, even though it is mostly women, I also find, here's another thing I noticed. This also is kind of interesting that we're even bringing this up in the discussion, but just because I'm a guy and I tend to want the best, looking out for the most healthy, I have more, I guess, more caring personality. And that's kind of what's led me in this direction with eating plant-based and eating whole food plant-based, etc. That sometimes I run into resistance, I'd say, even from some females, because they're not used to seeing a guy in that position. And like you said, it's really just because traditionally, and as you see, it's usually the woman that takes this role, right? For whatever reason. I'm not blaming, I'm not saying whatever thing, but that's something I feel like in society we need to even out, right? I mean, I would hope to see that over time that would be more of a 50-50 split,
Yeah.
But there are many reasons, of course, for that. So
we might be getting there inch by inch. I see a lot of guys now, participating. Once they realize how good the food is too, that's a big factor. I mean, we make ribs, we make a pork roast, it's all plant-based. There's, of course, no pork or bacon, or pork in the ribs, but there are ways to recreate every flavor that they love.
Yes. That's awesome. Yeah. So anyway, I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm just saying this as part of our discussion because we have to talk about reality and how things have been. And I think that we are moving in an awesome direction where, hopefully a plant-based world and, a world where everyone's participating equally and that everyone is leading their best life. I think that's the thing, right? If you're healthy, everything's great. If you're not healthy, usually it's misery for people. So that's why this whole concept is so important in my mind, anyway.
It is.
So yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of tips and things as to how to handle this?
Sure. Well, if your family, a lot of times it's teenagers too that won't get on board, or the kids. So if it's the family unit, then make foods that if they're willing to try what you're making, I mean, make cheesy broccoli soup and sloppy joes and lasagna roll-ups and all these delicious things that typical meat eaters love, introduce them to things and see if they're willing to join in with you. I noticed in some studies that it takes at least 2 weeks for a family of a plant-based eater to even kind of get on board and accept what that plant-based eater is doing in the home.
Yes.
So don't just give it a weekend and give up.
When you say at least 2 weeks, if 2 weeks is at least, how long of a time might someone have to wait?
Well, that's going to depend on how resistant the family is. It differs from family to family. But once they see the good foods that you're making, and if they're willing to try it and they and you discover, oh, they like this and they like this, maybe you could incorporate more of that and they'd be more willing to join in.
Okay.
But never like forcing it on them, or because once you start forcing it, then that resistance is going to come up again.
Okay. And resistance. Let me make a comment on that and ask you a question. How important is this whole lifestyle change? How important is the concept of open-mindedness in general to this?
Well, their future health depends on it, just as the plant eaters' health depends on it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Their life could be at stake, literally. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but truly that is the case, as we know.
Yes.
Diet is the number one cause of premature death and disability. It's the food that we're eating.
Yeah. Yes.
So there's many ways to make a base of food, keep the base the same, like make a pasta with marinara for the plant-based eater and add meatballs for the meat eaters.
Okay.
Start with a taco bar, and make your own taco, or do a stir fry with veggies and beans for you and put some chicken strips on theirs, so there's ways to do it where both sides can enjoy the same base of the meal.
I see. I got you. Yeah, that's good, because that way you're not cooking two totally separate meals, because that could be a huge burden on anybody, really.
That is a big burden. That's one of the stopping points why a lot of women don't want to do it, because they'd have to make two meals. So I try to show them that you can just make the same meal, just make a big pot of chili, bean and mushroom chili, and then make a little separate pot with the meat in it for them, just so you're not cooking two separate entire meals. Good
tips. Yeah, good. And I guess I want to make a comment too on the concept of open-mindedness. I feel like a lot of this comes down to sometimes when you're in a situation and you're living in close quarters, or you have in close relationship with others that don't feel the same way, being open-minded is very important. I've found, anyway. Just that. It's not even knowledge. It's not intelligence. It's just a matter of being open-minded, because for almost everyone out there, including many who are watching this video, the biggest obstacle here is going to be changing an entire lifestyle that you were raised in, right? So in order to do that, or in order to even consider that, somebody has to be open-minded. So that's to me the biggest struggle. Sometimes that can be very difficult. Like you said, someone's set in their ways, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So
it helps though too, if you can get them to watch a documentary or two, just to start that thought process about why we need to eat this way. Yeah, they're not open-minded because maybe it's coming from their spouse, but if you can get them to watch a documentary, or Forks Over Knives or Game Changers, and especially with your kids, if they're resistant, parents are always asking me, what can I do? I say, give them the choice of two healthy options and let them choose, but don't give them a choice of, chicken nuggets or a chickpea patty, because they're going to take the bad one, right?
Right.
The choice of two healthy options.
Okay, I got you. That's good. Yeah, and I know that I've raised kids. My kids are older. I know that even way back when I was raising my kids, I'm 51. My kids are between 20 and 30, and during that time frame when I was raising them, I mentioned stay-at-home dads earlier. There was almost no stay-at-home dads. I wasn't a stay-at-home dad. I've always had income to produce, but I've always worked from home even before anyone knew what that was. Mm-hmm. And so I did a lot of these things maybe in advance. And I also was concerned about their health. And I wasn't even vegan at the time, because 2014, my kids were already grown at that point for the most part. Well, at least almost grown. They didn't get the benefit of me knowing this from them being an infant, Mm-hmm. So but even then I knew that, like, if you fry something, right, mm-hmm. a fried food, well, that's going to be the least healthiest option of any way you could prepare that food, right, is frying it. Mm-hmm. So like I would say, well, you can only have one fried item. Like if you go to a fast food place and you're going to order like a burger and fries, no, you got to choose one or the other, right? Because they're both fried.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So that's where I was coming from, but I didn't have the benefit of all this knowledge that you've known for decades already.
It's cool too if you can get them involved in the shopping, let them help you pick out the recipes and go to the store. And the more involved they get, the more on board they're going to be. And if you can tie it into, you're going to be better in sports, or you're going to dance better, whatever activities they're in, if you can kind of tie that into why it's going to help them there, that could be another motivator.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that's for the younger crowd, right? For the older crowd, like you pointed out earlier, the food is generally the cause of the disease. So like in my mind, as adults, somewhere along the line, we have to put into our brains that we have to get better as we get older. Because if we don't, we already know what's going to happen, right? It's just going to be, the disease is going to catch up. So we only have so many years. We're not going to live forever. It just depends on if we get better or not, and how fast we do that, right?
Right. There's a really good video, you may have seen it, the last 10 years of your life. And it's got the one side is the man who was healthy, ate healthy, and he's doing all his stuff. And the other guy's in a hospital bed. It's the same man portrayed in two different scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's called The Last 10 Years of Your Life.
I gotta look for that. Yeah. Yeah. That would be sounds like a very convincing video for someone that's older. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to younger people, do you see, because I kind of see this, that the younger somebody is, the more likely they're already going to be involved in this lifestyle. Maybe it's not for health, but for environmental reasons, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It goes both ways. Either they're totally into it because of what you said, the ethical reasons and this climate reasons, or they're so already addicted to junk food. I've had clients where these 8 and 9-year-olds have been fed junk food their whole life. And so fast food, they refuse to stop that because it's all they know. And they're pretty much addicted to it at that point.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, I guess I'm looking at the hopeful side, seeing that there are folks in the youngest generations that are teaching their parents these things, right? Because this kind of stuff wasn't happening when I was growing up. It wasn't happening when I raised my kids, because this was a while ago. Mm-hmm. But at least I'm seeing that now, and that's good. But yeah, I don't like the thing that addiction. Yeah, I mean, that is so hard to break, right? The food addiction. So that brings it to a whole other level. If we're talking about somebody with a food addiction, yeah, I mean, it's so important to do this right, because it's not easy. I think we both know that, right?
It is. And remember, it's kind of like tough love to say this, but when you're the parent, you are the parent, right? You do have some say so as to what gets eaten in the house.
Yes. I would say
dictate what the menu is going to be all the time. So it's a balance. Well,
along that concept, they're also like, not only should somebody not let their kids decide what they're going to do because they're kids. If they could raise themselves, they would. They can't. We all know that. So somebody needs to be there helping them. And I say to take it to another level, at least I feel this way. Let me know how you feel. We don't want to enable somebody to continue their bad eating habits indefinitely either at the same point in time, especially if it's a parent-child relationship.
Right. Yes. They need to understand why as well. I mean, we can make delicious black bean burgers with fit fries. It's not like they're going to be eating salad, right, all the time.
Right.
There's delicious sloppy joes and all this stuff that kids love.
Yeah.
Carrot hot dogs, and all of this. We can make things that they would eat, but will they? I mean, I've seen that happen before too, where even when healthy food is presented to children, they won't even taste it, like they're not even willing to taste it. So in that case, you have to maybe give them the choice of two things. And if they won't choose either one, then maybe they're hungry.
The reason for that, what you just mentioned, at least I remember seeing some documentaries saying that the food chemists engineer these food-like products for like a certain mouth feel and taste, right? That is totally not natural, but it explodes your taste buds in a way that natural, real food can't do, right?
Right. I think it's called the bliss point, right? Where the food manufacturers add just the right combination of sugar, fat, and salt.
Yeah.
They test this. They do things on your brain to test when you reach that bliss point, when your brain lights up. Then they know they've got the perfect combo of those three addictive factors.
Yeah. And that's not good. That makes everybody's life more difficult, I'd say. It makes their health come crashing down usually, because like I described, I feel like those are food-like products. That's not food. It's just a food-like product that some food chemist invented. I think we both know, you and I at least, that's not going to be beneficial to a human body.
Mm-hmm. So, and childhood statistics are getting worse and worse. Under the age of 5, I think it's like 40% of kids are overweight now under the age of 5. And I'd have to relook that up. That sounds like a high statistic.
Well, I would unfortunately tend to believe that, because, like I mentioned, I have my own kids, and my worst feeling is that, and some of these documentaries have said it, like that the next generation is going to have a shorter lifespan. And just being a parent and having kids and seeing what's going on, right? And then grandkids too. I actually have grandkids, seeing what's going on. So I'm looking at several generations, and I'm just like, oh, but it's not, you can't just say, hey, please do this. It's not that easy, right? It doesn't work that way. But I see what's going on, and I see how many people just personally that I know that are negatively impacted by this. And it's disheartening, I suppose, but it's also motivating, because you realize how much work there is to do. And like yourself, if you're willing to do the work, if I'm willing to do the work, well, that's important work. I feel like there's really not much more important work anybody could be doing.
It's life-saving, really. I was at a family gathering recently with a lot of teenagers, and there was one that was normal weight out of all these teenagers. And that just broke my heart. And some of them were morbidly obese, between, I would say, 17 and 20 years old, they were.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My heart, because what is life going to be for them?
Right.
They're headed down a bad path.
Right. To me, it doesn't matter what you have or don't have in life. If you don't have your health, even if you have everything material you want, it's all worthless, because your health is everything. You can't enjoy anything. You can't have fun in life. One last thing, actually, I'd like to comment on, because you mentioned teenagers. And of course, we both know that the plant-based movement in general has really picked up in recent years, faster than I thought it would. But what I'm seeing out there is junk food. It's plant-based, but it's junk food. How does all that fit into the equation here? What do you, are you okay seeing people on those as transitional products? What do you think?
Well, I transitioned from a junk food vegan diet before I knew better, whole food plant-based diet. So I know there's hope for that. I didn't know any better. And I'm hoping that's the case with these teenagers that are choosing a vegan lifestyle for ethical reasons, but they're not thinking about their health. But at some point, maybe those light bulbs will go on. The more they're educated about, yes, this is better for the planet and for the animals, but it's better for you too.
Yeah.
So the junk food has to go. I did the same. I went from unhealthy vegetarian to unhealthy vegan to whole food plant-based. And so that was a process for me. And I just didn't know any better when I was at the start of that.
Okay. Well, that for you, that was a while ago, as you mentioned. What I'm seeing now is you go to the grocery store and there's all these plant-based products, but most of them are junk food, right? You didn't used to see that. Before, you had to go to the produce aisle or something, or you had to whip something off of your own, right? But now it's just like so easy. You just grab it and eat it. And like you're talking about being overweight. Well, it's easy. It's going to be easy to be overweight, right? Eating plant-based food like that, because it's not the type that's going to help you. But and you mentioned ethical or ethical only vegans. My answer to that is that the human beings are like also an animal, right? So if someone is ethical only, they really should be concerned about not harming themselves, not knowingly or purposely doing any harm to their own self, a human being, which is also a sentient being. So I know that message isn't very popular, but I think that needs to be talked about more, probably.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think Dr. McDougall has a chapter in his book called The Fat Vegan.
Okay.
And there's a whole chapter just on how these junk food vegan products. In fact, in my label reading class, I have a big picture of a chocolate vegan cupcake. I go, let's look at the label on this and look at the stats. If you eat this cupcake, here's what you're getting. I mean, it's full of fat and oils, and the isolated protein stuff. And
and I had a conversation very, very recently with folks about vegan baked goods, frostings, cheeses, things like that. And they were saying, "Oh, this isn't that realistic." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, there is some really super realistic stuff, and it's generally made with coconut oil, right? At least that's what I've seen." And I'm like, I tell them, however, that's probably the worst thing for your health, probably just as bad or worse than animal products.
Yeah. Over twice the saturated fat as lard coconut oil has.
Yes. So I think folks don't understand that. So, but anyway, I think it's a process, right? I mean, hopefully, if you keep discussing it, we keep discussing it over here, enough people will hear about it, and it's a learning process for everyone. So
it was for me. And I know some people jump into this lifestyle overnight. because they're sick, they have some health issues, and they hear about this and they jump in overnight with both feet, and they actually have the most success than someone who transitions in.
Ah,
But
okay.
if a person wants to transition in, that's fine too. But you have to keep going forward. You can't stay stuck in the transition, or you're never going to see the health benefits.
Yeah. And then for those who don't know about the health benefits, let's just summarize. I'll say something, you can say something as well, I think, but I think we both agree that the food that you choose to put in your mouth has the biggest effect on your own personal health, really than anything else. And you've got to choose wisely, right? And I think that choosing wisely is really as close to whole food, plant-based, and likely organic as you can get, right?
Mm-hmm. No cholesterol, right? Low saturated fat, full of fiber. There's no fiber in animal foods or bakery goods. Fiber is often overlooked very much.
Yes, that's right. If you're talking about the plant-based or vegan junk foods, so many of that stuff has no fiber in it at all.
Right. So there's so many benefits to whole food plant-based eating. Just the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants. You're not getting any of that with these junk foods and animal products as well.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, since this video is really about our friends and our family and relationships like that, one of the things that I've noticed, and I convey this to people around me that know, so anybody who hangs around me a lot has heard this, like, the older I get, because like I said, I'm 51, but even in younger years, but especially as I get older, if I am to stray away from a whole food, plant-based, and organic schedule of eating, like I usually am on, and I do have a treat every now and then, it really hits me. I'm telling you, like, I feel it. And I'm talking about vegan junk food. I'm not talking about animal products because I don't eat any. I feel that like I haven't felt before. And it's a reminder. It's like as you get into a more and more of a state of better health, you realize that how each choice you make negatively impacts you. And I think that the average person, though, doesn't understand that. The average person is in such a state of imbalance that they can't quite understand that. But I don't think this is unique to me. I think this is something that everyone can experience and maybe should experience.
Yes, as your body becomes healthier, you do react when something negative goes in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I feel it. And that's a reminder of, well, I don't feel so good now. I don't like the way I feel. I'm not enjoying this. So as much as I wanted, like you mentioned, that vegan cupcake, because I do have some from time to time. Okay, well, I probably don't want as many of those. That's all. That's a reminder for that.
The saying, nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And so, well, anyway, thank you so much for spreading the word about this. Can you show us your book again? It was the Plan A Diet, right?
The Plan A Diet. I have copies on my website for only $10 and free shipping.
Okay.
It's on Amazon too.
Your website, what is the website?
Oh, it's sidnotter.com.
Okay.
CIDNOTTER.com. And I've been working on a webinar. It's free. It's completely free. It talks a lot about the things that we can do for our weight and health. So
is the webinar available yet, or is it still in development?
It's available on my website, or you can go to sidnotter.com/register, and it'll take you to the page about it.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and discussing this important topic. I'm telling you, this topic is something that everybody has to deal with who is trying to do better with their health. And, hopefully this has been beneficial to you. If so, write something down in the comments, and definitely visit Sid's website, sidnotter.com, check out our book. And I know that we will be doing another video, at least one more, hopefully more than that, in the near future to discuss other topics like this. If you guys have an idea of some things you want us to discuss, also write it below in the comments. So thank you, Sid, for joining. It's been a pleasure discussing this with you.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you again.
Yep. You're welcome. Bye-bye.